Have you ever wished you could respond with such sharp clarity that the conversation simply stops? Without yelling, without insults, without losing control? Picture yourself in a tense exchange where one carefully chosen sentence shifts the entire atmosphere. The other person pauses, their tone drops, and suddenly they see you from a different angle, with nothing left to push back. In this video, you're going to learn 5 verbal responses that carry real weight. Used the right way, they interrupt chaos and restore balance. Whether you're dealing with a demanding supervisor, a challenging relative, or someone who tries to dominate every discussion. These responses don't just defend your position, they elevate it, allowing you to remain steady while quietly taking command of the moment. Listen closely, because one of these responses, especially the third, has the ability to unravel even someone who relies on psychological pressure to control others. Stay with this all the way through. These are not lines to memorize once and forget. They are tools to practice, refine, and apply. And when you do, you will notice a shift that feels almost physical. The noise fades, and the room goes still. Everyone has experienced that kind of frustration before. You present a point that is reasonable, grounded, and necessary, yet the person across from you refuses to hear it. Worse than that, it looks like they are winning the exchange, not because their argument is stronger, but because they speak louder, cut you off faster, or push with more hostility. Many societies confuse intensity with strength, volume with authority, and intimidation with respect. But that is not respect. That is temporary control. Real influence does not come from overpowering others. It comes from expressing yourself with such composure and precision that attention becomes unavoidable. The first response embodies this truth. I do not need to raise my voice to be right. Some people believe that increasing their volume automatically increases their authority. They talk over others, interrupt constantly, and attempt to dominate the emotional space, expecting you to escalate right along with them. The moment you do, you step into their trap. This sentence allows you to exit the chaos without abandoning the conversation. Picture a workplace discussion, a tense moment at home, or even a public disagreement. The other person raises their tone, trying to seize control of the room. You do the opposite. Calm, grounded, unshaken, you say, I do not need to raise my voice to be right. That single line accomplishes more than a heated rebuttal ever could. It halts the aggression and delivers a clear signal. You are not operating on emotional impulse. You are acting from mental authority. In that moment, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer reacting, you are directing. Stoic philosophy teaches that restraint is not weakness. It is mastery. Epictetus warned that a person who cannot govern their speech becomes ruled by their emotions. By responding this way, you demonstrate that your thoughts lead your actions, not the other way around. You do not rely on noise because your reasoning stands on its own. You do not force dominance because your confidence already establishes it. This response quiets the loudest voice in the room and subtly draws the attention of everyone else present. When composure meets chaos, people instinctively recognize where real strength lives. The second response builds on that foundation. The way you speak reveals more about you than it does about me. When someone approaches you with sarcasm, ridicule, or open disrespect, the instinct to strike back can feel irresistible. That impulse is where many people lose their ground. This response works differently. It acts like a clear mirror. It does not attack, it does not plead, it simply reflects, saying, the way you speak reveals more about you than it does about me, removes the sting from their words without adding any of your own. You are not insulting them. You are not seeking validation. You are not participating in their performance. Imagine someone delivering a cutting remark, expecting a defensive reaction. Instead, you meet them with steady eye contact and that calm sentence. Something unexpected happens, they hear themselves, and in that moment, they become aware of the weight and tone of their own behavior. Marcus Aurelius taught that the strongest response to harm is refusing to resemble the person who caused it. This sentence embodies that principle in action. You preserve your inner calm while quietly placing responsibility back where it belongs. There is a deeper lesson here as well. When you refuse to respond according to expectation, you take control of the narrative. The script changes, and so does the balance of power. When you alter the pattern of a conversation, the balance of power shifts with it. This next idea is meant for people who have decided not to sink to a lower level, not to mirror hostility, and not to let someone else's behavior determine their own identity. Long before modern psychology, the Stoics understood this principle deeply. Epictetus, who began life in bondage and later advised influential figures in Rome, taught that events themselves are not what shape us. What matters is the response we choose when those events unfold. That insight cuts straight to the core of personal authority. Your character, and the respect others grant you, is shaped less by what you face and more by how you handle pressure when disagreement arises. This leads to a simple conclusion. Victory does not come from raising your voice. It comes from answering with accuracy and intention. Marcus Aurelius, both a ruler and a philosopher, governed a vast empire while remaining composed under immense strain. His calm was not a sign of fragility. It was evidence of discipline. He understood that the person who governs their inner world naturally influences the outer one. His restraint became his advantage, and his consistency became his strength. Today's culture often celebrates instant reactions, sharp tongues, and emotional outbursts. Yet the individual who responds with thought and restraint stands out immediately, leaving a lasting impression. That is the kind of presence people respect, even when they disagree with the message. Seneca warned that speaking while consumed by anger is like releasing a weapon without direction. Words spoken carelessly can damage trust, shut opportunities down, and erase credibility built over years. That is why what you are learning here is not designed to embarrass or belittle anyone. These are strategies to protect self-respect with grace, to draw firm lines without aggression, and to quiet even the most persistent opposition. When your words are clear, measured, and confident, you stop competing for dominance. You step into leadership. The third response captures this shift perfectly. Let's continue this conversation when it can be respectful. Not every exchange deserves to be called a discussion. Some interactions are simply confrontations, wearing the mask of dialogue. One person cuts you off, raises their tone, insists on their version of truth, and expects you to absorb the impact. You are not required to engage under those conditions. This statement is not avoidance, it is a statement of values. Let's continue this conversation when it can be respectful. It is calm, adult, and unyielding. You are not withdrawing. You are redefining the terms. Imagine speaking with someone who refuses to let you finish a sentence, whose voice carries aggression rather than curiosity. Instead of matching their intensity, you pause, center yourself, and say that line with steady composure. In that instant, the focus shifts. The subject itself fades into the background, replaced by something more fundamental. The standard required for communication to be worthwhile. Epictetus emphasized that while you cannot dictate the actions of others, you remain fully responsible for what you allow into your life. By using this response, you make your boundaries unmistakably clear. There is no need for volume or lengthy explanation. You simply define what behavior is acceptable. Often that alone is enough to bring silence, because someone who refuses to communicate respectfully forfeits access to your attention. The fourth response serves a different purpose. I choose not to continue this conversation. There are moments when dialogue no longer serves understanding. The other person has stopped listening, and is focused solely on overpowering you, even if that means causing harm. In those moments, this sentence becomes a form of protection. I choose not to continue this conversation. Short, direct, unmistakable. It does not ask, it does not defend itself. It closes the door. Picture someone persistently provoking you. Each remark designed to drain your patience. You feel the tension building. Instead of reacting, you slow down, meet their gaze calmly, and say that line with quiet certainty. The impact is immediate. The toxic pattern collapses because it no longer has fuel. More importantly, you reclaim authority over the situation. Marcus Aurelius observed that harm loses its power the moment you refuse to grant it permission. By choosing to disengage, you preserve your clarity, your focus, and your self-respect. This is not surrender. It is conscious control. Choosing silence in those moments is a declaration that your inner calm matters more than winning a verbal exchange. When others witness that choice, they understand you are not running from tension. You are operating above it. This kind of response works like closing a gate. And there are situations where shutting that gate is the clearest expression of strength available to you. The fifth response addresses a different kind of challenge. That is your perspective, and I respect it, but I do not agree with it. Not every disagreement involves hostility. Often the pressure comes from people close to you, co-workers, relatives, or friends, who sincerely believe their way of seeing the world should also be yours. Their intentions may be positive, yet their insistence quietly oversteps your limits. That is when you need a statement that honors the relationship while firmly protecting your autonomy. That is your perspective, and I respect it, but I do not agree with it. This response does not attack, yet it draws a clear line. It communicates something powerful without hostility. I am listening, I value you, and I still trust my own judgment. Picture someone you care about pushing you toward a choice you do not want, a belief you do not hold, or a conclusion you find unfair. Instead of debating every detail or withdrawing to avoid discomfort, you respond with steady composure and say that sentence. What happens next often surprises people. The conversation loses its edge. The other person has nothing to strike against because you have not rejected them or invalidated their view. You have simply affirmed your own position. Seneca warned that living under the weight of other people's approval is one of the most confining forms of captivity. This phrase functions as a quiet release from that confinement. It is a refined way of saying that your thoughts belong to you and do not require permission. When you use this response consistently, you develop something rare, emotional self-reliance. Once others realize they cannot steer you through pressure or persistence, a deeper level of respect naturally emerges. Now you have 5 responses that do more than shield you. They reinforce who you are. 5 sentences that, when delivered with calm assurance and clarity, bring conversations to a standstill. Not because you overpower anyone, but because you rise beyond the need to. Respect is never forced. It is earned through character. Let these ideas settle in your mind. You do not need to raise your voice to be right. The way someone speaks reflects who they are, not who you are. Conversations require respect to be worth having. You are allowed to step away when dialogue turns corrosive, and you can honor another person's view without adopting it as your own. Do not dismiss the impact of these responses. When you practice them and apply them in real situations, a shift becomes obvious. People begin to listen more carefully. They choose their words more thoughtfully around you. You are no longer easy to provoke or control. You carry presence, steadiness, and authority in the way you speak. Here the focus is on learning how to think clearly, communicate deliberately, and act with the insight drawn from timeless philosophy. These principles are meant to help you build a life marked by respect, inner balance, and mental resilience. If you want to continue developing that kind of strength, stay connected. and share in the comments which of these responses you feel drawn to use first. I read every message, and your experience might resonate with someone else watching right now.